Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 22nd meeting of the Town of Barnstable Local Comprehensive Planning Committee. This meeting is being called to order. The meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Channel 18 in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. The committee must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. Not seeing any. I'd like to welcome a couple of our town councilors that are in attendance, Gordon Starr, as well as newly elected and seated Betty Lutke. Congratulations and welcome. We've got a full agenda around our planning and community engagement.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I may, for a call to order, if we could just go around the room and just say if you're present. Thank you.
Certainly. I appreciate the reminder. Let's start down here. Please go ahead and say hello and introduce yourself.
Lindsay Council, present.
Bob Twist, good evening.
Good evening, Steve Costello.
Avery Revere.
Good evening, Cheryl Powell.
Hi, I'm Felicia Penn.
Hi, Wendy Northcross.
Carlos Barboza.
Jennifer Williams.
Susan Rohrback.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everyone. With that, our first item is just some housekeeping approval of minutes from the August 25th, 2022 meeting. If I could have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the August 25th, 2022 meeting.
And if I could have a second. Susan, thank you. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 It is unanimous. Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to have a presentation from our planning department. Both Jim and Kate, I think, may be participating in this. So take it away, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you all. Jim Kupfer, Senior Planner, Planning and Development. Good to see everyone here. I know it's been a little while, and we have a lot of good housekeeping items and next steps. That's building upon our first two meetings of the Local Comprehensive Planning Committee. So I thought tonight we could walk through the agenda, go as fast as slow as we would like, and build upon already the foundation that we've done to date. So the agenda this evening is really diving in and attempting to get as close to a final engagement plan as we possibly can. As we know, the last two meetings was that's a significant portion of our agenda was the engagement plan. We did have homework assignment to start to build out that engagement plan, and we'll get into a little more details about trying to fill out or complete that engagement plan and some of the great activities that our consulting team Barrett will discuss in a moment. So engagement plan, going through the engagement activities, we actually have some displays here that we'll get into as well and play a role in. Developing our engagement calendar, you'll see some big calendars here. This is where we're going to start finally diving into the day-to-day activities and maybe try and nail down a couple of days for each and every one of our committee members and staff to try and fill out the calendar and, again, touch as many people as possible, get out and talk to everyone that we can here in the community. Talk about existing conditions, the data that a Barrett Group has been reviewing, as well as the 2010 goals and where those stand. And then lastly, just outreach materials, kind of the minutia of our outreach plan, getting through those materials and potential budget requests. So again, just stepping back real quick, I think we know, but for the public and in general, this engagement plan is to evaluate the goals and accomplishment of where we've been, so 2010 to where we are now, and maybe some of the accomplishments that we just haven't quite achieved yet. Identify and involve individuals that are passionate and invest about the future of Barnstable. That means, as we've touched on so much already, trying to get out and talk to as many people as we possibly can about the future of Barnstable and what is truly important to all of our residents here in town. So incorporating all groups as much as possible. We had a really good, robust discussion at our last meeting, and I think the engagement plan starts to build on that. And there's certainly opportunity to build further where you see fit. Engaging our youth is one thing we'll talk about when we're building out this calendar. The Youth Commission is coming up shortly, so we'd like to jump on that meeting and think about other real creative activities. We'll get into the calendar aspect of that shortly. Analyzing community feedback. So the engagement is not just, as you guys know, not just going out there, getting what they're saying and moving on. It's really understanding what they're saying, taking it to heart, and building upon that engagement, that interaction to assist this committee in fulfilling a vision and establishing a deliverable that is that vision at the end of the day of phase one. And again, conveying those results of the community engagement. So putting that back out there to the community to say, this is what we heard. Is that accurate? Does that feel correct to everyone in the community? Or are we still missing something? And if so, what and how can we get to that answer? So at this point, if I may, I'm going to hand it off to our consulting team who's done a great portion of this engagement plan and start that dialogue there. There you go, Jill.
Thank you, Jim. Hello. My name is Jill Slankus with Barrett Planning Group. And we'll go through the engagement activities. Again, just a reminder that they're going to draw the participation of full-time and seasonal residents and individuals employed in Barnstable, as well as visitors, stakeholders, and community organizations. The LCPC members, along with Town Planning and Development Department staff, will begin and guide conversations about the community's future by elevating voices in Barnstable and transforming individuals' vision into action. Some of the ways this will be done is small and medium-sized groups. The audiences will be nonprofit groups such as Lions Club, Rotary Club, village associations, high school students, and some of the exercises that can be done with this size group are things like Take Me on a Tour, which is if you had a visitor for what you thought was a week, and we're gonna make a sort of a week-long visit with them, and then they told you they only had the weekend or one day, what would you drill it down to show them in that short time? What do you think would be, most exciting, most important, or otherwise? And things that you would share with friends and family from out of town. Another possible activity is an appreciative inquiry. These are wonderful because they keep things positive. They keep the conversation positive. It's something you can also do to small to medium-sized groups. Ask what Barnstable already has, future aspirations for Barnstable, how to make it happen, things like that. Another activity is a SWOT analysis. That stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you can go through and have people list those different categories for the town, and oftentimes throughout, they'll see different similarities. Sometimes the same thing can be seen as a strength and a weakness, or an opportunity. The same thing can hit multiple categories, and that allows to see where similarities are, differences, and things that then throughout this process we can dive deeper into to find out more. Community mapping exercises is another activity. There's maps in here. Those are as part of comment walls, which we'll also go over, but it's a way for people to see the town, orientate themselves, and again, have a visual of where they live, where are the areas that they like to visit, and where are areas that they see other, maybe room for improvement. Okay, like I mentioned, the community comment walls and display boards. So we have them around the room. There's a map of the town, and there's actually 3 different questions on 3 different boards. One is, what is your favorite place in Barnstable? Another is, what is your favorite road to go down? And another is if you had one day, where would you bring a visitor? Proposed locations, and this is just a running list of what the planning staff was able to think of so far, but it can be expanded. A town hall, adult community center, the youth and community center, high school, the recreation building, the YMCA, and libraries. And again, that can be expanded. But those are the type of places that would be suitable for comment walls. And the comment walls go up for approximately maybe a month, a couple weeks or so, and then they can be, there's a process which we'd work with the locations of how often they need to get changed out if they get filled up and things like that, so people would keep an eye on them. Okay. Another exciting thing that is proposed for your consideration is a community photo competition. These have been done before, and they're a great way to engage the public in submitting different photos for the town that they like. And with social media now and technology, it makes it even easier. There's a way to keep people engaged. They can submit as many as they want, and then toward the end, there is a voting sequence that can take place. You might put 2 photos side by side. Which one do you like better? Click. What one gets the most votes, that goes on. And in the end, people have a chance to, many of the photos can be incorporated into the final plan. So it's a way for the community to contribute along the way and then into the final plan as well. Okay, other opportunities for community engagement are site visits, coffee hours, and tabling events. We have partnering with Hyannis Main Street and business improvement districts is one thing to do on Saturdays. Other opportunities and ideas are a poetry contest, Barnstable Jeopardy, Barnstable Puzzles, and an audio recorder. The poetry contest would be using a prompt about write us a poem about Barnstable. It could display existing art, poetry, and short stories about Barnstable on the table. And these are things that would be done out in the public at an event to engage people, to speak with them about this project, and also kind of give them something to do, something interactive to do. The puzzles are not like 500-piece puzzles. We're talking more about crossword puzzles, word searches for children, different things, depending on the level, the age level, it could depend on how challenging. And it would be Barnstable related. You know, we could have a coloring sheet on one side and a word search with different town-related words, you know, on the back. The audio recorder is something that was brought up, I think, at the last meeting. And in talking to the communications department, they have the technology to have an audio recording device on a table so that if somebody, instead of filling out a form, is more comfortable speaking freely, that information can be captured in audio form. And I know the town staff is working on that. Okay, the visioning and breakout discussions are something that would be a little further down the line in more of a bigger event, and that's in-person, interactive, and really getting into the details of things. All right, an elevator pitch.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question?
Certainly, yeah.
Before we go on, because the slide's close by, okay, I wanted to ask a question, I'm sorry. On your proposed questions, you had 3 bullets there. They're in no specific order, but you asked, what's the difference between, tell us what your favorite place is, and then number 3 was, where would you like to go? And to me, they're not significantly really different as far as interpretation. Excuse me? They could be? So those wouldn't be the actual question words you would use, unless they're prompted.
I think what you actually said was, where would you want to take a visitor?
Yes.
Exactly, yeah, that's how I read that.
These are just, it's a wonderful question, and this is stuff that can be worked on, and we can even add more questions, so that
Okay,
if
I
you
didn't
feel
know
like,
if that was final verbiage or not. It obviously is not, so I get the idea. Okay, thank
yep,
you.
Thank you for your question. Okay, elevator pitch. This is something that we certainly want everybody here to be very comfortable with, we have the we have the wording and different things. Has that been provided as part of the community engagement form? I think, yeah. As part of the community engagement plan, I have it on the bottom of page 13, but I don't know what version I have. It basically is introducing yourself. People might recognize you from around town, but it's always good to start with your name and role. Hi, my name is Jill, and I'm a volunteer with the Barnstable Local Comprehensive Plan. Okay, that's the introduction. You can get to the point. Barnstable is starting a local comprehensive plan looking ahead at the next 10 years. It will cover things across the town that fall under built, cultural, and natural resources. Ask a question. How do you want to see Barnstable evolve over the next 10 years? And then call them to action. This is where you will be equipped with cards or information where you can request that they scan a QR code to answer a survey, fill out a comment card, or invite them to an upcoming outreach event. You'll be real comfortable with this real soon. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Jill. And before we get over to the content for flyers and posters, I just wanted to back up just a little bit. So what we just went over were a number of different activities and strategies that ultimately, you received this draft engagement plan at our last meeting, and we're trying to build this out and get this finalized for you guys. And so these are a number of activities in which we could do moving forward. And we're hoping that with these activities, it will be the committee taking the lead, and along with support staff assisting. So we're not expecting you to, memorize the elevator pitch or memorize different activities. We're hopeful that we can match up committee members through the calendar and staff to support each and every one of these activities. So don't be too nervous that we have to memorize anything or anything like that. This is just really a number of different activities, and as Felicia mentioned with the different questions, we can mold all of these questions, and as we're going along, we can mold them. So if we find that this question really isn't, doing us service, it's not getting the quality that we're hoping for, we can certainly mold each and every one of these activities. And luckily we have Bear Group on board who's done this in a number of different locations and can assist us with that, and they have that toolkit readily available. So I just wanted to make that clear because I saw some concerned faces perhaps that already. Yes, Cheryl.
You have a hand up behind you. Shame on you, Jim. You don't have eyes in the back of your head.
Betty, yes, absolutely.
No, I just had a question, and I'm sure you've done this before, but it struck me, in fact, you said in your presentation, let's keep this positive. All your questions are happy. What if people, why aren't you trying to pull?
Do you mind popping up here?
Just go ahead and introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll know.
Betty Ludke, I'm the new town councilor of Precinct 3, and I walked a lot of the communities while I was going through my election process, talking to a lot of people. I know you emphasize the positive. Everything is positive and wonderful and great here. What about, why aren't you trying to pull out people that have problems? Why are we only being happy and glad? That's all that I saw here. That's why I'm a little bit, that might actually stifle comments from people who say, well, if I'm not going to be happy and glad, I better go away.
Fair point. So I have to tell you, having worked on many master plans, one I usually find is that when people come to meetings, what they really want to do is complain first. And so sometimes setting a tone that's a little more positive can actually be very helpful, because in the end, whatever you implement from a master plan, you're going to build on your strengths, not your weaknesses. That said, I just want to point out that one of the activities that Jill went over is this concept of the SWOT. And it doesn't mean SWAT, it means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that is an opportunity that tends to elicit not only things that people really like about their town, but the things that they're worried about. And Jill is correct that sometimes what some people think is a strength, other people will think is a weakness, and that's all part of the working out of why are people's impressions of the community or experiences in it so different. So it opens up a conversation piece. But your question is an absolutely fair one. We don't want to gloss things over. On the other hand, we want to encourage people to think about what can be done and how do you move forward as a community to be the best place that you can for everybody.
Great, thank you. Yes, gentleman in the back.
Yes, Bob Schulte from Centerville. Some of you probably know I'm actually a member of the advisory LPC committee. One of the concerns I have as part of this whole process, it was discussed how this is critical to the LCPC as well as the outreach to the public. as I look through this schedule here, and again, I understand there's a lot of things going on here, but 90% of it is a September-October timeframe. Today is September 22nd. My guess is by the time you go back and do your engagement plan, you're going to have about 30 days to get through this, which is probably the most critical part of this. I'm just a little concerned. I hope there's some flexibility that what you really are looking at is maybe a September through November, September through December. To try and do all this in the next 30 days and then come back in November, I think it's really unrealistic and unfair to the committee and unfair to the public. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments. I think my impression, and we can clearly discuss that, is my impression is that this is a work in progress. So I think initially we set up, you know, road marks along the way in our trip. So clearly there's no intent to rush through an exercise just to say, hey, we finished this November 1st or whatever. So my expectation would be clearly that we need to have our engagement calendar completely filled out with appropriate and, you know, areas that are going to allow us the most engagement and the most engagement opportunities. So with that in mind, if you want to maybe expand on that, Jim, and I know we're using this as more or less a, you know, a way to guide ourselves through this process. I know for me personally, it's a new process, as it most likely is for many of our, you know, board members here as well. So,
I look forward to seeing the calendar, and I hope you share that with the advisory committee and the public as well.
yeah, I believe everything's been shared up to this date. I don't expect that to change.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you're absolutely correct. You know, the beginning, the first meeting, we tried to set out a roadmap of some clear, you know, maybe goals. But obviously, as we're here today, working through trying to make as robust of an engagement plan as possible, I think it's pretty clear the end of October is not going to be that end date. And in fact, we're already displaying an engagement calendar that's the end of November, and that's probably being incredibly optimistic. I think as you guys, as this committee spoke to at the last meeting, it's about trying to get to talk to each and every individual. So however long that takes, I think, I mean, I don't want to speak obviously for the committee, but that was what I took home from the guidance from you all at our last meeting. So if I may, sorry. If we would like to continue on. So again, just those are some of the activities. We have some display activities for later this evening before you go home. Would love to be able on your way out to just kind of walk you through some of those activities. We actually had Kate Maldonado and I had the benefit of going to the Cotuit Civic Association as they invited us, and we wanted to try out some of these activities that the Barrett Group had offered, just to kind of get a sense of what we're looking for, to give this committee some guidance and recommendations on what maybe worked, what maybe didn't work. We found that we had maybe too many materials, but it was a great turnout of that civic association. And I know as been directed by the committee, we want to certainly reach each and every one of the civic associations. So we'll certainly walk through those in a bit, but if I may just hand it off to Kate Maldonado, who will walk you through the next aspect of the presentation.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, committee members. So as we've talked tonight about the engagement plan and we later work to fill this calendar, we also want to talk about what you're bringing. So working on your elevator pitch, but physically what you're bringing. So we'll bring these posters with great exercises to engage our residents, but also we've talked about handouts. So we want to follow up on the handouts. So in your binders, in your packets tonight and displayed up on the screen, you'll see a draft iteration of a flyer. So I'd first like to think about the content. So we just want to review this and make sure that it's compelling and that the questions that we ask are appropriate, so that when you go out in the fields and we hand out these questions, our residents who are receiving these materials walk away thinking about the questions that we want them to be excited to engage in this process. So at the top or center of the page, we say, help us to define the vision, to help us to define Barnstable's vision. So that's really the essence of this plan, and hopefully catches people to stop them and want to engage. And then we've included 3 quick questions, which I can't read from there, but I've got it right in front of me. So hopefully these questions help to engage our residents, and when they walk away with these slips of paper, it keeps them thinking and wants them to attend future events. And certainly all these materials will be translated, but first we just want to make sure that the content is appropriate. So I'll just read them quickly, and then I'll open it up if any members have any questions or suggestions for those questions. And obviously after this meeting as well, if you know, as you're driving away or in the next few days, think of, oh, this would be a really great question to have on our flyers. We don't want it to be too text heavy so that it's too dense, but we want to ask those questions that really help people to think of what the local comprehensive plan is and what we're looking to achieve. So again, help us to define the vision for Barnstable's future. The first question is, what do you want to preserve or enhance about Barnstable? The next question is, what are Barnstable's challenges, assets, and opportunities? That kind of aligns with the SWOT exercise that the Barrett team suggested that Jim and I found tremendous success when we went out in the field to the Katuitt Civic Association. So that's a broad question that gets people thinking about both the positive and the negative, and our weaknesses and our strengths. And then the last question being, what is your primary concern for the future of Barnstable? So those are just some suggestions that we as staff have developed for a draft flyer. Welcome any feedback. I know it's kind of on the spot, but if anyone has any suggestions for elaborating on those questions, I'd love to hear that.
I just have a quick question. So I know Betty had just mentioned everything is, all rosy, and I think that's the framework of kind of how you're trying to start the discussion. With that said, do you, Betty, if you may, as you see these questions, and they're very broad, what are your primary concerns for Barnstable's future? What are the challenges, assets, and opportunities? I'm thinking out loud in terms of all the input and feedback that we could possibly get that would help really provide as much opportunity to discover things that we need to discover to make sure that this plan actually does what we're trying to make it do. So any thoughts? And you don't have to answer right now, but I just want to put that out there because I think it's important for us all to think about, how are we going to use this to our advantage? I like the idea of how this is set up. I think last time I mentioned the QR code, I think, is very important. My concern would be we want to get people to actually click it and respond and make it as simple as possible to capture accurate information that we can use and incorporate into any discussion. So I think that's going to take a little bit of work just to make sure that it's functional, but yet easy enough for people to, have enough choices, if you will, in terms of what are the opportunities. Rather than have somebody fill them in, or should we have a list of things that we may all agree are challenges? So I just want to think about that we can all kind of include feedback as we kind of move down the road with this.
That's a great point. And if I may just respond really quickly, and then I'll jump to you, Cheryl. I promise I won't forget you.
And you may even answer the question I have.
Well, let's see. So along those lines, our consultant Barrett Planning Group will also touch on a future activity being rolling out a survey. And so maybe in that survey, that's a great opportunity where we can elaborate on some of these questions and get to the data that we're looking for in the future. And the great point, Chair. And I think, like you said, we want to keep these handouts short and sweet, but also engaging, so someone wants to click on the website to learn more and to see what we're doing.
Great.
And Cheryl.
I will start. Yeah, go ahead,
sorry.
Cheryl.
Thank you. So I agree. Oops, sorry. I'm a bad habit of putting that back too far. So I totally agree with Steve that, we want to make sure that the plan can actually do and make it do what we hope that it can do. And I love this because it's something that's tangible. It's something that people can understand on the flyer. It can also be used for the elevator pitch and the questions, because it at least for the last three parts, or two middle parts, but it could also, if we could elaborate on it, who we are, who the LCPC is, who's trying to get this, and what our goal is to serve the community. That's my personal opinion, if that could possibly be added. Other than that, I think it's perfect, because we can also use that more uniformly when we are doing the elevator pitch. And when you said call them to action is the fourth part of the elevator pitch, which coincides also with share your thoughts, what are the process, and, how can they help and what guide can they do, well, I agree with you. I think that's a great idea. Is there any way that you think you can help or any way you can get involved, which is involving the community? And then maybe try to keep some sort of record of that. That's going to be one of the harder parts, to keep a record of it. That's my thought. Anyway.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Steve, I think it's great. It's short, it's sweet. You actually have 5 questions there if you break it down, because number 3's got 3 question marks. But I think I'm moving fast. I see a QR code. I see questions. I'm clicking the QR code. I think I'm going to a survey. So I would just maybe make that actually part of the process. And I think like open-ended questions are important. We don't want to lead the witness here, but I do think that we could have some things that are sort of shaped already. But I think it's a perfect amount of information. Anything more, people don't read it.
Great, thank you. Susan, yep.
A couple of comments and a question. Excuse me. I like the idea of having some sort of comment about that there is a local comprehensive planning committee and what they're trying to do. Of course, I forgot my second question, but that's okay. Our second comment. My question is, when we go out to these events, who is going to be leading the event? Is it going to be the members of the committee, or is there going to be a staff person? Do you plan, or should we plan to have 2 people at each one, or just 1?
Certainly, if I may respond.
Sure.
I think that's a great question, and as we're filling out the engagement calendar, it'll give a great idea of events coming. We as staff really wholeheartedly want to commit our time to attending as many events as we can, whether it's a group event like the Open Streets coming up in downtown Hyannis, or whether it's coffee with a local comprehensive plan committee and a staff member. We really want to be there to support everyone. And with the elevator pitch, and this is jumping ahead to something we'll talk about later on, but we're working to develop prompt invites so that you can engage people to attend small or large-scale meetings. So if you want to engage and invite people, but certainly staff will be there to be able to answer questions and help support this effort.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
One more quick thing. Because we've done this so many times, it might not hurt to put the year on this so people know this is current.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Good idea. Yes, Felicia?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to second Wendy's thing about the QR code. I wrote here when I first read this, where does this take you? Because I think if people are on the go and they've got their phone and they scan the code, they don't want to go to a whole...
Welcome page.
Yeah, that's a landing page, but I think they should go to a page before that where it says, take me to the survey or feedback survey or something. You can click on it and just go right there, or you can go right into the weeds of the plan itself, because by the time they get through all of that and find what they want, we could lose them. So I just think it's important. I would love to see, and I know you don't want to do this, multiple choice answers and then a big space for other, so they can really put in what they want. But we don't, like Wendy said, we don't want to lead the witness, so I don't want to, put ideas into anybody's head by that. But I just don't think people are going to stand there and pour their hearts out to you. They might do that in an audio situation, but they're not going to do it this way. Not old people.
Jennifer, go ahead.
I was going to say, I totally agree with the questions are great. We don't want to lead the witness. We want those other and have those comments be generated by the person responding. The QR code, yes, it would have to go to a survey, to some action prompt item. Otherwise, you're kind of lost in the midst of everything. My thing is, do we need paper? Absolutely. That's another way of outreach. But I think the real key is the engagement. And that comes with us reaching out personally to people to ask those questions. I'm afraid that 90% of the people who got this piece of paper would not go the next step to do the QR code. That's one of the reasons why at the museum, at the farmer's market, at events we do, we've really gotten away from paper pretty much altogether. Not only environmentally, but also people just don't have the time to go that extra step. I think even the mail that we receive every day kind of gets piled up, and even the emails coming in. So I think that our personal engagement and reaching out to people is most important. And getting to your point about the audio and being able to record those moments, I think at the last meeting we mentioned perhaps doing videos on our own iPhones, if that's something, possible to really capture that moment, because I think everybody has a few moments to spare. But to take the next leap to do a QR code, go to a survey, I've got 20 interruptions in the meantime. I think really engagement and that personal connection is what we're focusing on. But absolutely, do we need this? Yes. So stay tuned. I'm hoping the iPhone will be a tool we can use.
I think it's a very good point. And I think bigger picture, right? I envision this as more of an on-the-fly scenario in conjunction with all of our physical in-place opportunities to do these types of activities that are going to be at larger, medium-sized groups that will allow us to. We're going to gather information from multiple sources, multiple locations. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Avery.
Hi. I may be the slowest person in the room, but when I look at this, I see Barnstable Local Comprehensive Plan. I'm like, I don't care about that. Community vision, goals, and strategic actions, I'm interested in that, and help us define a vision for Barnstable's future. That's what I'm interested in. That's what tells me what we're doing, what this paper's all about. Graphically, this part, the LCPC, which we all know, blah, 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 should be tiny. Nobody really cares. They care about the rest of it. And I think that in terms of things we're going to hand out, I couldn't agree more with Wendy and Felicia about that Q code has to go to something you can get quickly. We got to make it so you can get it quickly and not all the hoo-ha, We're never going to say SWAT out loud.
Bob, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Felicia's question, Kate. The QR code that's on the sample you passed out, is that the actual QR code, or is that just a space saver, and you're going to substitute a different QR code?
So right now, that's the QR code to the website. And so we'll talk with Barrett's team. We'll give some updates. They've been working on a draft survey. So certainly understand that a call to action would be taking you to a survey as opposed to the website. Tonight, we just wanted to work on evolving this content, get some feedback, and then we can certainly have the QR code go to a survey.
Sure.
I made myself a few notes so I could respond to a few comments, starting with Jennifer. I really appreciate your comment about people with the handouts and being on the fly. Just thinking off the top of my head, the town, we have access to tablets. So maybe when we're out in the field, we can bring tablets. I'm not an IT whiz, but as long as we can have them connected up, maybe we can have people there at the event take the survey while we're there, and if they have questions, they can talk to a local comprehensive committee member or staff on the fly. The other comment was on the audio and the recordings. Felicia, that was a fantastic comment at one of our earlier meetings. We've talked with our communication team. They're more than on board to help us with that effort, and we as staff have thought about thinking about maybe the Main Street Open event. Maybe we can have a fun photo booth that's engaging and have people come, have some questions for them, so some prompts. So certainly things that are engaging rather than just, a handout. I think a handout's helpful and it's a reminder. People walk away with a physical tangent object, but certainly we want to engage people in other opportunities as well. And to Avery's comment on the graphic right now, that actually leads into my next slide. I won't go there yet in case there's any more comments on this slide, but we have come up, our graphic designer has developed some alternatives for the graphics that maybe will be, more condensed, and we can elaborate on the call to action more than taking up the page with the graphic as is right now.
Yep. Cheryl.
I just wanted to comment on Avery's. I think you have a fair point there. maybe, and I love those ways put it together, but maybe put the help us define for the future, make that larger, put it on the top, and something above that, like, your views are important, please help us define, you have an opportunity to help us define the vision for, well, whatever, define the vision for Barnstable's future. But if we put, your views are important or something, put that little bigger, we do have to put it in the LCPC, but it should be the views and what we want to get for the community interaction, the community participation, I think is, that they're important.
I think 3 cheers for Avery and her comment, because if I had to redo this, I would flip it upside down, because you're right, it's not the name of the committee, it's really what would you like, where, the incentive for action is to really grab their attention and get their ideas. And what we're named doesn't really matter, except to us.
Great, thank you. Next slide, I think, Kate, or next? Yes, sorry,
A
Susan.
very quick question and comment. Is this going to go out to all the people who get the Friday newsletter and that sort of thing?
We do, in the town's e-newsletter, there already is a graphic that says the LCP, and it takes you right to our webpage already.
Okay, well, we should definitely emphasize that there's a place that they can go to answer a short survey. And I remembered what my comment was from before. When we're talking about, we've been talking about, should we have some specifics that people can react to? And I think as we get along a little farther in this, we could say, some things people have said are, and then have a couple of examples, and, just to pique people's interest, and not that we're telling them what they ought to be thinking, but what some other people have been thinking.
Yep, sure, go ahead.
One thing here, with all these great suggestions, I think you're going to have to look at something on the backside as well. For me, I wouldn't do a QR code, but I'm very interested in the 3 statements. So maybe some more urgency on the backside with some outline of the schedule, so people know that this isn't going on forever. You've got to get your comments in, so that's what I'm saying.
One other question, is there any incentive for people as they are completing these surveys? Is there some other incentive other than having their voice known? Is that something that could be incorporated? Just a question.
I guess that would be a question for our consultants. Is there, I'm not sure what incentive you're thinking of.
Something,
little
random
carrot
drawing
versus a stick.
of a random drawing for a local, small gift certificate to a local business.
Yeah. Free membership to the Austral Historical Society.
Yes,
Something
absolutely,
like that. I like
absolutely.
That. I think that's a good idea.
You could be a vendor at the Osterville Farmers Market. That's a tough one to go for.
Yeah. Just if you care to respond, is that something that would help? I mean, we're talking about trying to get more traffic and more traction. So are those?
Absolutely, and especially where there's been a survey, I think, underway for the housing plan, we also need to be conscious of surveying people to death. So it's a good question, and to some extent, it depends on the nature of the survey. So if we've done a general public survey, like this would be, things like a gift card or something to a restaurant or something, that people can enter their name if they want to sign, if they want to tell us who they are.
Or a water bottle with the Town of Barnstable
A water
logo,
bottle, something like that. If it's a survey for a special population, people who typically don't participate, we have offered stipends to participate in order to encourage them to join the process. So it kind of depends on the survey, but there's no reason why you can't have a couple of prizes that get sort of raffled off later or something. That I think that's perfectly fine. We can talk to the staff about that. It's a good idea.
Okay.
We always ask people to do these things, right? And then they sort of wonder, well, where does my input go?
Right. Thank you.
What's in it for me?
I really don't want to drag this out, but I just had one more thought. So we highly identify with our villages. I just don't know if maybe there's some reference to our villages on here too, or somewhere.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm dying to say this. So 30 years ago, I had my best job ever. I was the community development director for the town of Plymouth. And if you know anything about Plymouth, it's also really big. Yeah. And people didn't live in Plymouth. They lived in North Plymouth, West Plymouth, Manomet, South Plymouth. And so everything we did around planning in that community, you kind of had to arrange questions in tiers. So you might have a question about, some concern in the community. But you always start out with, or some way in the survey, you ask, where do you live? Because you want to be able to cross-tabulate the answers later for, were people more sensitive to a particular concern because they lived in a particular neighborhood? Or was it truly a townwide type of concern? So when we design that, we kind of have to get at, to what extent does neighborhood location affect the way people respond, or where they work? Does it affect the way they respond? But you have a big town here, so the sensitivity we've already had about the villages, that's resonant for me. I've been through this before, and we need to be able to get that out of the information, however we're getting it. Any of these activities, I think, where do you live is important.
Yep, no, I think that's critical. And clearly, when we do our, on-site stuff, the fact that the responses from each village, that those will take place and will be heavily valued. Yes, Carlos?
How many language the surveys translate to?
That is a good question.
Yep.
Yes, and that was actually, I just wrote languages. This is something I wanted to follow up on when we're thinking about the flyers. I know we said it'd be translated, so as staff, we've thought English, Portuguese, and Spanish, but certainly would love your feedback to make sure that we're being inclusive and that all of our residents are able to engage in any handouts and the survey as well.
Thank you, Kate. Any other comments?
Just on the language issue, we're also working with the county on the home programs, our allocation plan for homelessness. And one of the things we've picked up along the way is that Haitian Creole is also a language that probably ought to be included. I've seen heads nodding here, so we should talk about that. Because we really worry about that somehow these things are so Eurocentric and so forth that we forget there are people in our community who, whose experience may be very similar to ours, or maybe very different. If we don't ask them in a polite way in the language they speak, we're kind of saying, you're not part of us. So we really want input on that. It's just very important.
Yes, Carlos?
I just want to let you know that if you have any trouble, you find somebody to speak Creole. So I have someone who does speak both languages, so I can help out with that.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Kate.
I think I'll continue to the next slide. So as, again, still on the handouts and flyers, after the last meeting, we followed up. We have a graphic designer that we work with to provide some potential logo options, which you can see on the screen before you. The first example, I think at the last meeting, we kind of talked about, I think it was concurred that we like the circular form of a logo. So the first iteration kind of representing different categories, natural resources, transportation, homes, trying to speak. I mean, the local comprehensive plan it's such a broad topic and it's hard to represent it in one quick logo, but the first one kind of tries to take those facets and represent each. And then the other two potential logos, and certainly I want to open this up for further dialogue, represent maybe more of the landscape of Barnstable and help people to get engaged and to learn more about the plan. So I'd love to hear some feedback on these draft logos that before you.
Anybody? Wendy?
I'm sorry, I think it's a waste of time and money. We have a logo for the town. We got to keep, we're behind schedule. It's just a lot of busy work, and that's my personal opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else feel strongly about, I know we did spend time on it last time. I think the comments that Cheryl really initiated and Avery, the fact that the LCP as a thing is less important to people that we're trying to get feedback from. So I tend to agree with that. If we can maybe flip-flop the language that you suggested, I think that's probably a better suggestion than focusing on handing out a piece of paper that's going to look nice with a cute logo.
Just to run that one home, if I may, that the people that we're trying to reach are the people who are the most important, in my opinion. That-
Versus a logo.
Versus a logo.
Yeah.
I'm not averse to a logo, but I just, I think there was a fair comment.
No, I think it's important. If it doesn't add value, then what's the point? I think focus on things that are more, getting more to the meat of
I
the
wouldn't
problem.
miss it.
Unless there's a legal requirement that we have a
No,
logo for anything.
I don't think so. I think it was just, I think
You don't want to,
it
cause
seemed like
problems.
more of a, kind of a, in my opinion, it was more like a team building exercise where we all came up with kind of ideas, and we did sort of land on that. So I don't want to dismiss it entirely because we spent time on it, but I think in terms of big picture, I would say it's probably less important in terms of making sure we get the questions right and the way that we're going to get feedback correct versus, when we give them something, they're going to say, wow, what a cool logo.
Although I'm sure we would all like to thank the people who took the time to put that together for us. Thank you. It's very nice.
And
But I guess with that in mind, maybe we should just think about if in fact this is the first sort of call to action step, let's make sure this drives home the message and is more, thought-provoking than, what the logo may mean.
Yeah, and maybe throw in a little more color. That, for people, this is not just grabbing, to me, with just one color.
I appreciate.
And question marks, excuse me, but, people look and they see question marks. What is this?
I appreciate the, the graphic design and the logo and the elements of the icons, but I think that when I think about, this committee, I think of people, and I think of those engaging moments with people, and those three don't necessarily reflect that connection with people. Whenever I see a logo or a brochure or something without people, I think, oh, it's kind of flat. Where's the person-to-person connection? And agree with Wendy that it's one more thing to spend energy on when we really want to get out there to the folks. And Steve, I think you're right on target with that.
Okay, good.
I have a question.
Yeah, Cheryl?
I noticed it takes up half a page. Is that the intention, to take up half a page, or could we actually use the page and make it bigger, utilize color and things like that, use what's here?
Yeah.
Or postcard size is fine. But,
I think that's the intent. It's going to be more of a smaller
oh, okay,
handout. Yeah.
that works for me.
So I guess, sounds like we didn't vote on it, but it seems pretty unanimous that this is maybe less important for us to spend energy on, so.
thank you, and maybe it's just an opportunity where we, choose to go with one, maybe make a few tweaks. I think, in my experience speaking, I think one of the benefits of the logo is just as we're out in the community, someone can start to recognize the logo and see how much we're out in the field, and try to get a quick synopsis for what the local comprehensive plan is. But I certainly hear from the committee tonight that it's not as high of a priority, so maybe it's working with these or, a small tweak if we want to, and coming up with a new version of the flyer and getting some more feedback.
I think just,
Town has a logo.
I think let's, I'll just ask, since we have our consultants available, let's ask their opinion, and they've done this multiple times, so in terms of the value of a specific logo for this type of engagement, what has your experience been?
I feel like I'm talking too much tonight, and I apologize, I don't mean to. Not everybody feels as connected to their town government as others do. So the town seal is the town. But a plan happens with many more people involved than what happens in this building. And so one of the advantages of a logo is that it kind of distances a little bit the project. It's not just about what town hall is doing. It's about what is the whole community's responsibility for the kind of place that we become. That said, I share the opinion about not having a people piece in there. I do think that if you want to impart that message that we all have responsibility for the kind of community we live in, you would want that artistry represented in the logo. But I would just encourage you to think about, do you want people to just think about this as something the town does? Because not everybody feels as connected to town government or as represented by town government or as served by town government as others. Something to think about.
My only response to that would be, I think, you certainly have done this in the past. There's a lot of intelligent people, in my opinion, on this committee that have spent a lot of time in their communities and know their communities. My only thought is maybe you just adjust it and with graphics, put our message there, incorporate some silhouettes of people, so maybe that becomes a consistent theme when people see the handouts and they see the correspondence coming, maybe, and that's simple, so.
I was just going to add that I think from a design perspective, having worked at many places with logos or emblems or universities and colleges, I mean, that is your, forgive me, corporate identity. So if you have that logo, a Town of Barnstable seal, perhaps smaller and lower, and use some of those engaging colors within this postcard size piece, and you flip it upside down and put those questions, face forward, and maybe the silhouettes of folks or through a design perspective make it a little more attention grabbing. I think that's when you don't, overwhelm people with, oh, there's a big Town of Barnstable logo at the top, but certainly at the bottom, I think it adds substance to it, and that's kind of what we all are doing is working for the town.
I think that's a good idea. I also, when you were speaking to us and talking about people not always being supportive or engaged in the town, of the flip side of that, we wouldn't want them to think that we were a rival faction to the town or trying to take over, trying to be somehow, again, we want to be clear that we're working with the town, trying to help the town, and the town is trying to help them and to engage them. So I totally agree with Jennifer. I think that's a great idea. That's my opinion. I'm only one opinion.
Sounds like we've got some pretty good feedback on the direction, so go ahead, Felicia.
Well, I understand staff's ideas about consistency and visual, so that somebody in 2 seconds will say, oh, that's part of the plan, and they're trying to brand that, so that when you see these colors and this stuff, this is part of that plan that's happening in town, okay? But the average person really doesn't give a damn about, they care about being heard, being asked, being heard, being recognized, I think. And after that, are they going to go to the website and read this plan when it's done? I don't think so. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think they're ever going to trip over this plan later on in their life ever again unless they're a major developer asking for something. And eventually, if everything changes in town and they can't do what they want to do anymore, they're going to blame it on the plan, But I mean, I get your position of saying, here we are, so when you see us across the block, maybe you cross the street and talk to us. I get that part. But, I think you can just do it with consistency in what happens. I agree with Wendy, to brand something like this, a lot of time and effort, and it's all going to go, I don't know.
I think realistically, it's just my opinion, I think the way that we're going to get the most engagement is by doing all the things on this empty calendar that needs to be filled up. So the things in terms of handouts, those are more, opportunity grabs versus we have a captive audience at all of our village association meetings, at all of our outdoor events, at all the opportunities where people are going to come. We don't need to entice somebody with a specific handout that creates some sort of curiosity or interest. I think by and large, the majority of the feedback is going to come from the people that we engage with.
And their friends who they tell on social media afterwards, go do this.
Correct.
Go do that. Or they want to know.
In fact, when we're talking with them, I would strongly suggest, when listening to everybody here with some fabulous input, when we are talking with them, rather than letting them go, I think it would be important to have somewhere to direct them to. We're going to have a meeting on this, that, and the other, public meeting. Please come join us. Please help out. Or please go here and look at this. And, there's another way to participate and to give feedback with thought. Just simply so there's a way for them to come back.
Right. Kate, anything else on that, or we'll just move to the next slide. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead,
I'm
Susan.
sorry, but I'm been thinking about this, and initially I thought, oh, yeah, we can do without a logo. But in thinking about it and hearing what everybody said, something that says, oh, here's something that I've seen before, and it piqued my interest before. I think I'll look at this. instead of I'll just click and say, I'm not even gonna bother with this. And I don't think it necessarily has to be a full logo, but I love the idea of having some people and having, blue and green. I like the middle one because of the blue and green. Land and water, that's us.
So can we agree that maybe logo's less important? Maybe we just think about an actual collateral piece that has maybe a revised look and feel to this, and that becomes kind of what we're talking about to make it simple? Sound reasonable? Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Really appreciate your feedback. Before we jump to filling the engagement calendars, which I know we're all excited to do, I just wanted to mention, thinking about other tools for getting the word out. We really want to capitalize on what our communications, we have a phenomenal communications team here in the town, want to capitalize on what they already have. And that includes Facebook. I believe they're up to like 12,000 followers on Facebook. They have a Twitter account and Instagram. So as we fill up this calendar, we will be using these social media tools in order to help spread the word. When we have our survey going, take this survey, voice your opinion. What do you want Barnstable's, what's your vision for Barnstable's future? So we're going to continue to capitalize on what our communications team already has, the followers that they have, and help to expand those followers as we're out in the field as well. And a point that Cheryl brought up earlier in this dialogue was talking about how do we get the residents to know the members of our local comprehensive plan? How do we get people to know what the local comprehensive plan is? An idea that staff has, and certainly appreciate your feedback, is maybe working with our communications team and doing quick videos where our members of your committee can each take a quick segment and say what the LCP is, why it's important, maybe talking about some of the topics, and then we can take those videos and help to spread the word using our social media as an engaging tool to get people to, and with quick snippets, so it's not a long video where someone feels that they have to sit down and they may not have the time, but just engaging videos and help get the committee involved and spread the word, if that seems like an appropriate engagement tool to the committee.
I think that's a great idea, yeah. So let's figure out the process and who we should send it to and how to do it. I think that's perfect.
Great. Okay. So I think we're going to jump to the engagement calendar. I'll pass it over to Jim.
Thank you, Kate.
All right. So now it's time to start building out this engagement calendar. As you can see here, a couple highlights. The community engagement form went out to the committee, and we were able to grab a lot of great comments about general events and locations to go to, and we took from there some specific dates that we found. So again, the Cotuit Civic Association was just this past Tuesday, and extremely well attended, a lot of great feedback. Obviously, for all these events, staff will put together all the comments and post them on the LCPC website for not only the committee to be able to review those comments, but for the public to be able to review those comments. Today, actually, earlier today, we took the table out to see how it would work in a somewhat larger setting to the 55 and over Community Safety Day, and that was extremely well attended. Over 300 people, somewhere around there, attended that. We didn't have as good as knickknacks as some of the others, but that's all right. That's something to work on, I guess. We do have, we've already reached out to the Youth Commission, and that's one avenue. Great opportunity on 10/10, I believe, for the Osterville Fall Festival.
I'll jump in there. The Osterville Fall Festival is actually 10/8.
10/8, excellent. The Fall Festival there, and so this is a great example now. So that we have the Osterville Fall Festival coming up. I think this would be an opportunity where if we had, one or two volunteers of the committee, we certainly have a staff member there as well to assist, kind of lug all the stuff out there and get it set up. And so I think here this evening, not only kind of starting maybe to fill out, but I think maybe the best forum might be that on our way out, if you're looking at your calendar before you leave, maybe start scribbling in some dates there, and then Kate and I can get back in touch with each and every one of you about, nailing down the details for each of those events, because I know it's probably kind of hard to, right off the top, to think of different events. There's so many that's happening this fall. But again, Village Association, the Barnstable Village Association has reached out, and we're on their agenda there, so we'll certainly want some representation if anyone's available. And of course, the next Hyannis Open Streets, we just missed this past one, but we'll certainly want to be there for the 16th. And we have a note there for coffee hours. So I don't know if anybody's a coffee drinker, but I am definitely one, and I'm happy to join each and every one of you throughout the town and set up, predetermined locations and just, have a sit down with a committee member and the general public, whoever wants to come out, talk about the plan and talk about their vision. Depending on the venue, we can certainly set up whatever activities appropriate for that there. So, I mean, if anybody has any events now or any dates now, I'm happy to take those.
So we have two members of the president of the Osterville Village Association is here. I would love Mr. Crow's input on terms of what dates may work. It may be multiple dates too, to make sure that the membership has an opportunity to fully explore all of these opportunities to comment. And Mr. Schulte as well with the Centerville Village Association. So, the Osterville Fall Festival, that would be a great one. That seems to be more of an opportunity to do some of the handouts, so I'm hopeful that we can get that to a point where it's actually viable to be able to hand those things out and they're going to be of some use. So, Mr. Crow, I hate to call on you right now, but are you comfortable kind of thinking about what's most appropriate? I know a lot of the members for the OVA are probably, 50-50 year-rounders versus, residents. So just in terms of thinking about opportunities to engage, I know you've got your monthly meetings on the first of each Tuesday
First
of each
Tuesday
month.
of every month. Can you hear me?
Yep.
First Tuesday of every month. I think the Fall Festival will be fine. I think it would probably be best to contact Gail over at that about setting up a spot on the sidewalk so that when people walk by, they can pick up information. That'd be the best way to do it, and have your group do that. We have a November meeting, which is November 1st, and at this point, there's nothing scheduled for that date for the OVA on the agenda. The October 4th meeting has the town manager coming back to speak about the Avangrid proposal. So maybe November 1st is probably the best, earliest day that you can come and present something to the group.
So in addition to that, I think we had talked about libraries as sort of an open-ended opportunity to do this exercise. It would be great to maybe inform, all of our village members. And I assume we can do it in multiple villages or wherever the libraries happen to be. That may be a good opportunity to keep it open just for people who may wander in, and then maybe we can promote it so folks know it's available to them to make comments during the engagement period. So something to think about.
If you're planning on doing something on that November date, November 1st date, the earlier the better, so we can let the library director know as soon as possible. Sometimes there's they have to set up scheduling for employees for that night. So if you talk to, maybe Jen can talk to Gail, and then let me know if that's okay with your group, and then we'll set it up.
Great. Yeah, I think that would work.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Carlos.
So I've been talking to a immigrant pastor association. On October 15, we're going to have a little meeting, and I'm going to present the idea for them to host us in each church, right, to take the message to them. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, so I work with Kate on the schedule of that, and then subsequent dates that work for folks. Yep.
It's going to be in a health ministry right here.
Thank you.
On the 16th or the 15th? 15th. Oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Schulte.
Yes, the Center for Civic Association.
You want to? Can you come up to the microphone so we can? It is being televised, so that way everybody can
Sure. The Centerville Civic Association, I think our next meeting would be October 10th. Maybe kind of short notice, but I can give Jim the contact information for Bob Wenger, who's the president. He sets the agenda. I think November 14th would be our next meeting. That's probably your best shot at setting something up. So.
Okay, 14th, perfect.
And can I ask a question about the Centerville Civic Association? Are your meetings still on Zoom or are they in person?
They have been, but I might suggest that we try and do this. We've had some other meetings that we've done at the library in the basement level in
Perfect.
person, so this would be a good one to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, Susan?
Yes, Centerville, there have been meetings about the wind power and the electricity coming in, and they get a lot of people. I don't know when, I'm sure there'll be another one before too long because they haven't made a decision yet. So if we could somehow coordinate with that.
28th is the next one, next Wednesday, but that would not be a good venue.
No, that's right. So one of those really big ones, yeah. And then the Love Live Local group is having an event on Sunday in Hazelton Park.
The airport's having an event on the 24th of September, a great day at the Gateway, celebrating America at our airport. 2 days.
What about election day? Sorry. What about election day? Election day.
Election day, it's a good thought. Yeah, I guess, I think in terms of getting
I don't know if it's,
a flyer
is
or
it
handout.
legal to do that, is to set up, somebody needs to check with town clerk's office to set up outside, because it's a non-political event, so I don't imagine it'd be a problem.
Yeah, I can certainly check with the town clerk about proper areas for that.
Yep. I mean, and just from an ongoing, I know we had a suggestion last time about, folks at the transfer station, so whether we put, a couple of Saturdays in there or, and it seems to me the most appropriate place maybe near the recycling bin. That's where it gets a little more accessible and it doesn't create, a log jam in terms of people's access, so.
It's a great reminder for me, too. So I have 2 little boys in the Barnstable soccer, and I'd be happy to go out with anybody who wants to join me. A lot of whistles early in the morning, but, a lot of good parents there with nothing to do. So, if anybody wants to join me, I'd be happy to go with someone. Excellent. Okay, well, this is a great start. Again, before you leave this evening, if there is a date that strikes you, please feel free to scribble on the calendars. And also, we'll send out a virtual calendar so everyone can also kind of pinpoint some dates that might work for everyone.
Jim, I noticed on the calendars, looking at those earlier, and I'm kind of staring at them from here now and again, it's got times. Oh, no, it doesn't. It has the dates. There's dates. Never mind. That's what happens when you look from this part.
Not a problem. Excellent. So now I'll hand it back over to Jill to talk about existing conditions.
All right, so the update is the consulting team's working on the existing conditions for the town, and that's being done through reviewing previous plans and studies, as well as interviewing different town departments and organizations. So it's ongoing, and it's focusing on the natural, the built, and the community environments. Yeah, so that timeline to finish up is, this fall. So that's all.
Great, thank you.
And with that, too, I know the Barrett team has been talking with a number of different departments, getting kind of the existing conditions or where each of the department heads stand in each of the departments and the fire districts as well, where everyone stands. And I think we've had a real great, robust conversation and have tried to lay some groundwork so that the Bear Group, as well as myself, really gets an understanding of where everyone stands. And with that, is the 2010 goals that we talked about earlier. So looking back at the 2010 plan and understanding where we stand, one of our to-dos is to get those goals out to the departments and have them review the goals and report back to the committee and to the public about where they feel they stand on those goals. And why I say that is that, there may be some different interpretations of how those goals have been achieved. For an example, a traffic mitigation strategy that may have been outlined in the 2010, while may have been technically achieved by, say, DPW standards, we put up that signal or we put up that stop sign, what have you. Maybe those in their village see that as we didn't really quite achieve the goal. It's physically there, but maybe it's not supporting the pedestrian activity that we're hoping for, or something like that. So I think, having the departments then come back to the committee and to the public to provide their responses to the goals, and then having some further dialogue there will really help give an understanding of where we've been and where we are at this moment, so that we can start visioning for the future.
I think it would be really important to understand what the departments think are the most important things that haven't been done, and what things are like, okay, we can just forget about that. We've moved on.
And Jim, you're suggesting that's going to be on our next agenda? Are we able to realistically expect that?
Hopefully. Well, in talking with the departments, I think that's a good opportunity there. But I certainly can report back to the committee if maybe we need to wait maybe one more meeting from there. Excellent. So now I'll hand it back off to Kate.
Oh, good. I just was going to mention.
Thank you, Jim. So as we, at each meeting, we've promised an update on the housing production plan. Again, that is a very important document that's running parallel with this effort. So I just wanted to take advantage to provide an update. Last night, there was a community forum, and the objective of that meeting was for the consultant team, it's Jen Goldstein, to provide their initial findings as far as data related to housing, to get feedback from the community, and then to also really understand the community's vision for the housing production plan. So I would say that it was pretty well attended. They had a webinar, so you could attend virtually, as well as I think there was probably somewhere between 20, Felicia was there, thank you for attending, probably 20 to 30 people in person. And then I know 20 people had registered for the webinar. So that was a great opportunity to just hear from the consultant team as to where they're at, what data they have, get some feedback from our residents as far as their ideas for the vision and feedback for that data that was presented. Right now, we have a housing survey, as Judy mentioned, live. If you're interested in taking that survey, if you went on the town's webpage under planning and development, we, as our department, list off all of our current projects. So that's a great resource to just see what what our department's working on. The housing production plan being one of those active projects that we as a department are working on. So if you clicked on that current project, you can take the survey. And the objective of the survey is to hear from our community about their stories for housing, as well as their perspective of our greatest needs for housing as we develop this housing production plan. A draft housing needs assessment is being developed, and that will be available. We will inform this committee as well as all residents when that plan, the draft, is available for public comment. And then lastly, they are coordinating a follow-up meeting, an additional meeting that we will inform you when that has been defined.
Yes, Felicia, please.
Yeah, I almost made this comment last night, but it was a little off base, so I thought it was more appropriate for tonight. Since the housing production plan will be informing the LCP, and that was stated last night in doing so, a lot of the comments of the people there, many of whom I'd never seen or heard, and I think that's great that they're not the same people that show up at every meeting all the time, which is wonderful. A lot of them talked about the quality of what made their neighborhood great and what they'd like to see going forward. And a lot of them talked about housing, but they talked about it along with open space, parks, sidewalks, recreational opportunities, trails, walking trails, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think they're doing that just because of pandemic-related being stuck inside. I think it's a quality of life issue generally. So I'm sure everybody here knows we have an open space and recreation plan in this town that was just voted in or accepted, whatever you want to call it, in 2018, so it's relatively current. So as the housing production plan's paralleling, I was thinking to myself, well, here's all these people talking about the balance. They're looking for that balance in their neighborhood. They weren't even talking about the town, they just wanted it in their neighborhood. And I thought that, I hope that the open space and recreation plan, while the housing production plan, if it's informing this plan, I would like to see that balance coming into this also. So I just wanted to say that was what my takeaway was from that.
That's a great point.
Yep, that's a great point.
Thank you, Felicia.
I notice we have our housing coordinator in the house? No? Okay. That's a no, okay.
Office manager.
Oh,
I stepped in as housing coordinator for a
I'm sorry.
second.
All right. Yes, Carlos?
Before we go any further, how many bankers participate in those meetings and developers? Can you tell me? Is anybody, local bank like Cape Cod Cooperative Bank, Cape Cod 5, Rockland Trust? Yes. None.
I'm not certain. I didn't take roll call I don't know everyone's roles. I know there was a woman who is actually going to sign up for our housing committee, which is phenomenal. She, I believe, Felicia, correct me if I'm wrong, but is a mortgage broker.
Exactly.
And she had some great insight that she is going to bring to our housing committee, which is phenomenal. We're really fortunate. I believe her name was Emily. So
Well, I
Dealing with HUD, I mean, she was really into inclusionary housing and affordable housing and getting people served mortgage versus, she was very frustrated with some of the current situation, let's just put it that way, and I think they mentioned she had already been interviewed for the housing committee, so I think she'd be a great asset. She's young also, which is nice.
Right, so I think it's important for the bankers and developers get invited to those meetings because they hold the stake, so.
One developer was there that I could,
Yeah, Jake Dewey, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
but that's a great point, and I will relay that to Ryan, especially as we look to coordinate the next meeting.
Just a thought of going sort of backwards a little bit about who we can involved. Can we, or are we planning to go to the Hyannis Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District? Can we get them to have an event, a breakfast, or something like that that would feature, people answering questions about this?
Is not Open Streets actually part of the Business Improvement District? And that was listed. So in a way, they are involved.
This would be the business owners.
Oh, I see.
That's a great point, and we can certainly coordinate that. I appreciate that comment. Oh. Sure.
So knowing Jan Goldson as I do, I suspect that she has spoken with developers because we have worked together quite a bit. But one of the things I've also found about developers is that they don't want to go to public meetings because everybody hates them. So the main point is to get their input. But just so you know, there's yet another thing going on, too, that is probably more directly involving them. We're doing an analysis of the inclusionary zoning ordinance, its effectiveness, and whether there are opportunities to strengthen it. So that's involving a lot of developer interviews as well. And I need to talk to Jen and make sure that the list I have from Ryan, if Jen's already spoken with them, at least if I call them up, I can say, I know you already spoke to Jan Goldson, but now I have some different questions for you. But they will be involved. And the bankers as well, because they know the situation.
Right.
Not only with home ownership, but also with construction lending, with permanent end financing for rental development. I mean, those people are all part of the conversation. So I'll talk to Jen and find out who she's spoken
My
with.
only concern is the cost of the construction today in the Cape.
It's huge.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
So no way affordable housing, nobody can afford, so.
Right. Yeah, it's having a chilling effect on,
And to talk about tiny house, $100,000 to buy a tiny house, that's ridiculous, so.
yeah.
And the other thing what Carlos said just made me think of was realtors. Because they hear from people who are, why they're coming here and why they're leaving.
So that's a good suggestion, holding coffee. Jim likes coffee, maybe with Realty Association. Okay, well, we'll try to coordinate something with that. Yes, Kate?
So the next topic, doesn't look like, oh, there we go. Apologies. That we want to discuss tonight is outreach materials, again, beyond the flyer, but thinking of other options and other ways that we can communicate and catch our residents' attention, that we're updating our local comprehensive plan, that we want people to engage in this process and get their feedback. So as staff, we had a quick brainstorm session last week to just think of some ways that we could help get the local comprehensive plan out there so that our residents are aware of it. And I'm just going to run through these suggested materials, open it up for dialogue, see if there's anything that we're missing of this list, and then talk a little bit more about the budget and see if the committee concurs that this is a necessary exercise. And then if so, probably take a vote to make sure that we all align with this effort, as there would be additional funding that we would have to coordinate. So just thinking about outreach materials, we've thought about yard signs. I know I personally commute here, and when I'm driving into Hyannis at HYCC with the elections recently, there's been several yard signs, and for me, that's caught my attention. I know there's other events that yard signs have been, I believe, and staff believes, insightful. So that's one avenue we can think about, putting yard signs around for the local comprehensive plan. Similarly, A-frame signs. Another effort that we've discussed with our communications team is possibly doing a town-wide mailer. I will touch upon that because that is the outreach material that would be of most expense. So we've talked about maybe doing that at least once to try to see if that is an effective tool for reaching our community, and certainly open to any comments on that. Postcards and handouts that we've talked about earlier today. We got some great feedback on how to edit the versions that we've got to date. Posters, we've got an example table banner. We just printed this out on paper that our GAS did, but it'd be nice to have a nice vinyl banner that we can take out. I know Jim, Elizabeth, and I each have tents, so you can imagine that vinyl banner being up at the top of the tent if we're out at open streets or other events to try to catch attention for residents to stop by, or in a retractable banner. So those are just some ideas that we've thought about as we go out into the field to make sure that we're prepared and help to spread the word and catch residents' eyes. So I'd love to hear if everyone thinks that those are great ideas, or if there's anything that we're missing. And then we can talk a little bit more about budget to make sure we're all on the same page.
I get a question, Kate. You pointed out the townwide mailer, obviously. One mailing 5 by 7, so I assume that's a postcard?
Yes, it would be about the size of a postcard.
Okay. How would you measure the effectiveness of that, since it's the most expensive item on the line? Is there going to be is there an interactive code on that also, where somebody could measure, I don't know what the back end of that would look like as from an IT point of view, but it would have an ID on it that it came from the mailer, or a special landing page or something like that? I mean, how would you measure it? Because if we're going to spend that, I mean, it'd be great to know, because we're going to be doing this again in 10 years, and so it'd be nice to know the effectiveness of it if there's still mail then in 10 years.
Can I make a
My only response or thought, Felicia, is the most mass mailings in terms of a sales concept. The response rate or the hit rate is like less than 3%. You know what I mean? So in terms of the effectiveness and you would have to do 3 mailings minimum to even achieve kind of, the results I think you would want.
I think that's true for when there's no relationship between the vendor and the person receiving it, or the person sending it and the person receiving it. That's a correct percentage. But coming from the town, I mean, where somebody's asking, I assume it's gonna ask them for their involvement, or go ask them to take an action of some sort. Correct?
I mean, I'm assuming it's this, right?
Yeah.
I think you get more bang for your buck with the postcard. I think we certainly have to reach every town, every resident of the town of Barnstable. I think the $15,000 to a town-wide mailer is lost. I think that could be.
That is a postcard.
That is, but there's a postcard for 720. What is that? The town-wide mailer, 15,000?
Is that just a handout?
Yeah, I think.
Versus a
yeah.
mailer?
Okay.
There's no
I don't know.
postage
I think the mailer seems like an expensive proposition if we're, and that's the majority of this budget, but what, yes, Savory?
I recall in the last year, I can't remember on what bill I got, and it was probably an e-bill, but there was an announcement that the town council really wanted us to stop littering. But it was really clear, like I saw it, it was part of it, and it couldn't have cost a whole lot of money to add it to an e-bill. And I don't, maybe someone here remembers which was water bill or whatever it was, but everybody's getting, or lots of people are getting those bills. Could we not do something like that?
It's a great idea for a stuffer for everybody's got to pay the water bills, and there's multiple. It's a great idea.
Oh, may I make another suggestion?
Yep, Cheryl and then Wendy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize another hand up over there. So I love that idea. Another thing I was thinking of, one of our tasks is to involve the youth, and I think we should be involving the youth in the community. Something I did, it was kind of cheating, when I was a newspaper editor, I wanted to involve the school. Thank you. I wanted to involve the schools. So I involved the youth big time, and they would involve their school, and therefore they would involve their parents and take things home. And it's going to cost you the postcard, but you also have son, daughter, children, whatever, bringing these home to their parents. Hey, look, we're involved in this. And they're very good at spreading the word. And that worked tremendously. So I like that idea. This is another way without just doing it town-wide. It might save some money on that also.
Well, I think most of the schools have e-lists that go out every week, and they're happy to share PDF versions. And a great way to reach out to not only the kids, but their families and whoever else is
Grandma,
at
grandpa,
home. Exactly.
aunts, uncles.
Yes, extended connections that way. That's where you involve, a design contest or what's your favorite photo. Every kid has a phone and, taking pictures of sunsets and beaches and everything within the town of Barnstable. So that's a great way to get them involved and get that feedback.
Community outreach.
Community outreach, absolutely. And I think the idea of piggybacking on a pre-existing mailed piece is a win-win for everybody because it saves on that budget. I'd rather put that money into some in-person coffee event where we can have, realtors together or developers or church members or veterans and farmers to really target that. I think those dollars could go much further and create those personal connections with people. And then you create those personal connections and they spread the message, getting to someone's point earlier. Because 15,000 seems like, where that is the majority of the budget, it seems like an awful lot to devote to a mailing that may or may not get the kind of pickup we're hoping for.
Wendy, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say a PDF that you could share with the civic associations. They can pop it into everyone's got an e-newsletter. So just make it really easy for them. And you'd find other people like, JFK Museum has a newsletter. We'd pop it in there.
Yes, Avery.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but whatever we do, before we do anything along these lines, we want to go back to establishing our look, because it has to be consistent, whether it's on a yard sign, going home with people. It is the branding, and it does keep us all on the same page, but it can be so simple. It can be colors. Think of the advertising, We all know what, Coca-Cola, it's a color, And I think with what we already have and just some colors and reorganization, we can do something that's really hits, just stays consistent.
Steve, if I may?
Go ahead.
What was the action item you were planning for a street sign? What would people see when they drive by? What are they taking in? I don't, it's not an election, so.
Oh, I apologize. The yard signs.
Yep.
So putting the yard signs out, saying local comprehensive plan, maybe a question about what do you want the vision, what's your vision for the future of Barnstable?
Be tough to pick up the contact information on something
Yeah, I
like
think-
that.
Yeah, and Jim just added on, including the website.
I
Maybe
think yard-
pedestrians see that as well.
Yard signs really are so tough because we've all seen the clutter of the yard signs from the elections everywhere, and some people pick them up and some people don't. But you don't really have a lot of visual space, and the contrast has to be very high. I think if it was done in a very crisp, smart way, almost questions, teaser questions, as sort of a series, colorful, but just short, sweet. And then people would be like, what are these? Oh, here's another one. What does that mean? And then maybe there's a final one that tells you, go here. Let us know what the next yard sign should be, or something to get people thinking. I think the questions could be the most provocative to get people to see. But again, high contrast, have to be, really crisply done. And that's hard to do. But effective when it is done.
I like that idea, but, and I really do, but I find myself questioning, the yard signs stand out, but really for elections and things like that, but with something like this, even if we put out the logo that we were talking about, the only thing we can really do is have a phone number on there to contact, because people are driving by for the most part, unless you don't really have a yard sign in the middle of town, are you? So you have, well, in some places, but you don't want to also be a distraction for somebody writing down a number when they're driving. So I think the only thing you can really do is a number. Of course, you also don't want them to think that this is the headquarters. Let's say we all put a map in our yards, so we have people knocking on our door and saying, is this a new company or something? I don't know.
I just have a suggestion, since this is slightly horse before the cart kind of, or cart before the horse scenario. I really think, we're looking at October as our next meeting. I think really what needs to happen now is get something that is really agreeable and ready to be presented. So I'm going to have to charge you guys with how to get this turned around quickly so we can at least discuss it prior to our next meeting once or twice at least, I would say. Sending us a couple of drafts, maybe taking the information, the feedback that we've all kind of shared, and just having a go at just revamping what this messaging is going to look like when it comes out. Then we can kind of then decide, okay, how many postcards and how do we get this, stuffed into all the water bills and things like that.
And I'd love to volunteer to take a crack at that, to help in any way, because I think there's some things we can do. I am not a graphic designer, but I've been doing this for decades. So I'd be happy to jump in and, yeah.
There's a subcommittee has just been formed. All in favor? Okay. So there's 3 people on the subcommittee now? Is that true? Okay. Okay, great. I think we're getting, all right, I think 4 is too many. Nothing personal, but, okay. So Jim, if you could maybe connect with everybody on that so we can all just agree what it looks like and then just keep the train moving.
That sounds great to me. Thank you for this feedback. I know Cheryl was talking about the youth and how do we engage the youth. That's been brought up during this meeting, and that's actually our intent with meeting with the Youth Commission on the 27th of September, is asking them how would they, what are their suggestions for engaging the public. So that's something that we will definitely be relaying to this committee, the feedback that we get from the youth.
Great. Avery.
In terms of a meeting like that, are we expected to maybe come to some of these engagement meetings? Because I'd love to go to the youth meeting.
Yes, I would say that everyone is welcome to attend, and I think as we develop out this calendar, we'll be able to share it so that everyone can see when events are coming up.
One name on there or several names?
And then there's space if you want to sign up so that we know who's interested in attending, but certainly we as staff are committed to attending as many events as we can.
I'm just going to take a photo of those before I leave, just so I can think about dates where I can plug things in.
Certainly. Okay. Well, I think we're getting towards wrapping up this meeting. We really appreciate your feedback on the engagement plan. We've got a lot of homework to do on the actual material going out in the field, and then we can circle back on what that material would be implemented to, whether it be those signs or trinkets or such. But I really appreciate the feedback. We'll go back to the ground and try to work on that design. And so as far as next steps, we as staff are working as we develop out this engagement plan. We want to help think through how to invite residents, your neighbors, your friends, your family to events. So we will be providing impromptu invites, that some quick text that you could use when you're thinking of inviting someone to an event, whether it's a small event or a large event. So try to help with the communication tools to invite and encourage as many people to come to these events. So we'll be sending out that sample invite text shortly today. And as we continue, as Steve mentioned, we appreciate some more feedback in the next few days to finalize and fill out our engagement plan. And we will also make that visible on the webpage so that residents and the public can see when we have designated times that we would be out in the field. So that will be, I think, a great tool to develop. Judy, Barrett team, if you guys want to speak more to the survey.
So there is going to be a survey, no surprise. It's still evolving, so I don't have a whole lot to tell you about it, except that typically what we try to do in these master plan surveys is, master plans cover a whole lot of content, and you can make a survey so long that it just frustrates the respondents. So trying to be very selective about questions that get at concerns that people have in their community, where those concerns might relate to more than one master plan element, is kind of the art of constructing those questions. It's typically best to try to structure them as sort of, multiple choice, just anything that makes it easy for people to get through the survey. So we always do a beta test of them and see, well, how long does it really take to take this thing? And then you have to keep paring it back. But I do know one of the things we try to do in these surveys is ask a few demographic questions in a format that closely aligns to the way the Census Bureau asks demographic questions, because then it gives you a little way to say, well, of the people who responded to the survey, how closely do they kind of reflect what the Census Bureau thinks is going on in Barnstable? So there'll be a few demographic questions, not about income, but really sort of age or household type, and also where people live. And typically the way we do that in a survey is we have a map of the town and we divide it up into like 6 or 7 sections. We could probably do it by the villages. And just to ask people, and we put a number on each one. And so the question is, where do you live in Barnstable? And they just pick the number that relates to where they live. We're not asking them for street addresses. They don't want to divulge them anyway, nor should they. But that allows us, we use a survey tool called Qualtrics, which really gives us the ability to do some fairly advanced cross-tabulation of the results. So we'll be able to kind of look at, if you live in this village, how did you respond to certain questions, and to what extent was that different from perhaps the way other people responded, and can you then cut that down to, did people respond differently across these different villages based on how long they had lived in Barnstable, or how many times they had moved around in the community? So that's evolving, and I believe the plan is to try to get that out by mid-October. Am I right about that? So that's coming. The other thing I think you wanted me to address was the Bringing It All Together event. So there is a piece in this, again, engagement plan that we're sort of calling Bringing It All Together. All this activity that you guys are going to be working on with the staff and so forth is going to be a whole lot of input that somebody's got to sort of pull together, literally. So one of the firms on our team, Dodson Flinker, I don't know if any of you have ever worked with them, but they're absolutely magnificent. And we've worked with them a lot on master plans. They're actually going to kind of put that event together. We've been talking a bit with the staff about when to do that. And given the time it's going to take to do all this other engagement, We had talked initially about maybe trying to do something on November 15th, but the reality is we're not going to have all this other input in. So I think one of the questions Elizabeth was hoping to maybe get a little sense from you folks. When we've done this for other master plans, we typically do it over a couple of dates. It might be, a Tuesday night this month, and then, or, 1 week, and then the next one is Tuesday night 2 weeks ahead, and then you at least have time to sort of distill what came out of the previous meeting. The other way we like to do it is to start something on a late Friday afternoon. Some type of activity, people are sort of together around dinner time, and then we go into a whole Friday night and kind of distill all of that and put together an event on Saturday. So there's a continuity of it, and it's kind of becomes sort of like master plan weekend. So, I think one of the questions I guess we have for you folks is, if it's cut up over a couple of days, does that create any concerns for you as to an impact on participation that you know of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it just depends what those dates are.
Okay.
As long as we have advance notice, I would think.
Okay.
You're talking about our participation as a
Everybody,
committee.
everybody's,
The whole
the
community.
yeah, the impact on public participation. I think that the difficulty of trying to do sort of a bringing it together thing like this in one night is that it becomes very superficial. And it could be done, but it's going to be very superficial, and there's going to be a fairly extensive length of time after that where you guys are going to have to help kind of make sense out of what came out of 2 hours.
Judy, can I just ask a question?
Of course.
It may seem obvious, but I want to just be clear. The kind of the piece we're talking about, with the QR code that's going to direct somebody to an action, which we all seem to assume that it's a survey.
Yeah.
Is this a different survey than the survey you're sort of talking about proposing, or is this?
I don't believe so. I think
same-
It's the same survey.
Same survey, okay.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's one master plan
Great.
survey, comprehensive plan,
I just want to make sure that people weren't going to be inundated with, hey, what about this? What about
Yeah,
that?
no,
Okay.
we definitely, and again, just trying to be sensitive to the concern about the housing survey. We need to sort of time this around when Jen is done. So
And then
that-
just one other thought before it escapes me is, assuming we may not be prepared to have this QR code, there's some events coming up pretty close. I'd love to think about creating some sort of paper format, so if we are at some of these village events where we're not fully prepared, but at least we can be present, and maybe that starts to roll the ball. Maybe a table or an opportunity where people can quickly fill out, check here, what village are you from, what's important to you.
Absolutely.
Maybe an anonymous stuff it in box, so
Yeah.
sometimes people get a little bit hesitant, wondering that someone's going to look at it and go, oh,
Where are you from? Yeah. Yeah,
just a
right,
thought,
sure.
because I think it'd be helpful to get ahead of some of this stuff, because we're going to have the fall is a really popular time for
I know.
village events and activities, so.
Yeah, we
just
can
a thought.
certainly, take
Yes,
that
Avery.
up, but yes.
Just a super quick question, maybe Jim or Kate, you know the answer. If you have a QR code, it doesn't mean you're married to the same website forever. You can, I'm pretty sure, behind the scenes, make it go wherever you want. So if we, just by way of example, for 3 months have a survey, and then in January 1, we can change it over to the next step. This is true, correct?
Yeah, I believe that's an accurate statement.
We'll test it, but I think you're right.
Yes, a QR code can go to an email address, a website, a video, anything.
But
you
it
want,
can,
or
the
survey.
same QR code can be changed at
Yes,
any point.
that-
I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's like a link.
Yep.
So do you have any opinion about this sort of maybe doing this over a couple of dates or a couple of evenings? I think it's going to be a more meaningful and useful event for the plan. If anybody has any concerns about it, we're still trying to talk about dates on this. I apologize, I don't have a date to plug into the calendar, but.
I think it's fine to do it over a couple of dates, to spend more time.
Yeah, I think that you may get people who come to one and not another, so I don't know whether that makes a difference. And I think for the general public, you're more likely to get them on like 2 Tuesday nights than you are on a Friday night and Saturday.
Okay. See, it's so interesting to work from town to town, because in some communities, people love a Saturday event, and in others, they look at us like we're nuts. So, this kind of feedback is really helpful.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, following up on Susan's, I favor not Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
You know, I think, you know, a couple of weekday nights, not necessarily the same night. If you're going to have two of them, maybe they shouldn't both be Tuesday, because some people are tied up every Tuesday, or every other Tuesday, and you're going to get a calendar. So the thing with, I think on Friday, Saturday, is particularly down here, or any vacation or resort area, people are all, you know, doing all sorts of things, particularly on Friday night. Now, if we're doing it in the fall, traffic's not going to be nearly as big of a problem
Right.
as it would be in the summer. But still, you got high school football games,
Yep.
you got athletic events, you got people going hither and yon, you got people coming into town and people receiving them.
Yep.
So I'd be in favor of, you know, like a Tuesday one week and a Thursday or something like a couple weeks later.
Can I suggest that we have one weekend day and then like a Sunday, I mean, it's not going to, nothing's going to be perfect for everybody, of course, but what about a Sunday, Monday? Because there's going to be a lot of people that work unbelievable hours during the week, and also a lot of families that want to go and find someplace to go to on a weekend, because that's their free time. That way you cover both the weekend. I agree with you, Friday, Saturday is, and, yeah.
I would be hesitant on a Sunday.
Really?
Just
Okay.
for multiple reasons, church, football, things like that.
We've done some events on Sunday afternoons, but again, so much of this is the community. They're all different, so, you know, we've had great turnout on Sunday afternoon events and horrible turnout. So, you know, I think really this input, I think, is helpful, and we'll continue to work with Elizabeth and staff on how to schedule this, okay? But it's coming. And that will be the sort of big event to sort of bring it all together.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, go ahead, Jim.
I think we're about to wrap up here. So just for everyone's understanding, the next meeting is October 27th. We have a lot of homework in between now and then. Certainly we'll reach out to those who graciously offered to work on the branding. So we'll work out with that. We'll work with our consultant team on getting the survey in a good form, and hopefully up and running in a fairly quick time frame. And obviously the biggest thing is the schedule, building out this engagement plan. So if you do have an opportunity to fill it out, I know it's already getting a little late, but we'll send out a virtual calendar certainly. And please inundate us with opportunities, and we'll try and line it up, be able to provide the equipment and materials, and happy to reach out, you know, and try and reserve spaces such as with the civic associations and others, but certainly looking for your guidance on all of that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other comments from anybody here? Public comments? Yes, go ahead, Carlos.
I just want to share my appreciation for the staff and also the consultant, because they've been doing a lot of work, and I really appreciate that personally.
Ditto.
Agreed.
Just
Thank
a
you.
reminder, I'm not going to be here on October 27th.
Okay. Thank you,
Same
Felicia.
here. I have a comment.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I won't be here either.
Okay. Thank you. So definitely then we'll get that subcommittee branding done, and perfect.
Oh, that's too
Yeah.
little.
For the branding, for the branding.
Yeah, for the branding. It's going to require a retreat to get your mojo going. I definitely agree. Yeah, good call. With that, that concludes our meeting. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is concluded. Thank you, everybody.